Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Adrian from Draft Time, and in this video, I want to go over some strategies for the DraftKings Showdown slate. Now, when it comes to single game slates, I prefer DraftKings over FanDuel because, for one, DraftKings requires 6 players as opposed to 5 for FanDuel, which means a little bit more strategy and optimization. But secondly, and more importantly, when you put a player into the captain spot on DraftKings, it costs 1.5 times more than the cost of that player normally. So that means that there's a lot more that goes into optimizing your DraftKings captain spots than the FanDuel captain spots. In fact, usually you just end up putting either a quarterback or, one of the elite players like McCaffrey or Ezekiel Elliott into that FanDuel captain spot. So there's not really a lot that goes into it. Whereas with DraftKings, you have to be more careful who you put into that captain spot because it uses more salary. All that being said, our optimization tool takes all of this into consideration for you. So let's go ahead and take a look at this tool I'm talking about for the showdown slate for tonight between the Rams and the Seahawks. So let's go ahead and let's run 3 lineups. And now we could see that this first lineup is Russell Wilson. And then you got Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, Chris Carson, Cooper Kupp, and Luke Wilson. Now, what do you notice about this lineup? Well, the first thing that I notice is that it has 3 Rams receivers. Now, this lineup may very well cash in a GPP, but it doesn't have much upside to really win big in a GPP. And why is that? Well, in order to win big in a GPP, you basically need all of your guys to go off. And if Cooks, Kupp, and Woods all go off, well, that also means that Jared Goff has a monster game, but he's not in this lineup. So it doesn't have that kind of, that 10x kind of upside that you want. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying not to enter this lineup into a GPP. In fact, on these single game slates, the top lineups tend to do very well as far as cashing because everyone else is trying to be contrarian in these showdown slates. And this means that they're reaching on players. So, I'm not saying not to enter this. You could enter this and still win, but it's not going to be one of those lineups where, you win the top prize. So what I like to do for these single game slates is I like to generate a bunch of lineups and then I handpick lineups out of this that actually make sense as far as their upside. So let's go ahead and let's change this to 30 lineups and let's generate 30 different lineups. Okay, now we have 30 different lineups, and we could go ahead and go through these lineups and try to find lineups that make a lot of sense. Now, this second lineup makes a little bit more sense. You have Chris Carson, then you have Cooks, Woods, and Goff, and then you have Russell Wilson and David Moore. So you have Cooks and Woods, and if they have a big game, then Jared Goff also has a big game. You're going to have Chris Carson at this captain spot, which Chris Carson is going to be highly owned, but I doubt he's going to be that heavily owned at the captain position. So there is some upside as far as not a lot of people having Chris Carson at this captain position. And then you got Russell Wilson and David Moore. So Russell Wilson could throw, a couple of touchdowns. Maybe one of them could be to David Moore. So this actually does make sense as far as being a lineup with high upside. Another thing you need to take into account is David Moore probably isn't going to be that heavily owned. I mean, he's only $600 and he's only projected to score 3.81 points. So he allows you to, select all of these other players and be able to fit their salaries into your lineup. But at the same time, he is capable of catching a touchdown from Russell Wilson. And his ownership shouldn't be that high. So that's the best piece of advice I could give you. Go through these lineups and try to find lineups that make sense, that have a lot of upside, and also ones that, go for those low owned players. So anyways, good luck tonight. Let me know if you have any questions. And I'll see you in the next video.